Alright, hello today, YouTube. I just wanted to make a quick video on what you should look for when buying a used ATV and or dirt bike, because the things that you might find on one of these and need to be checked out can be similar on a dirt bike, but these are going to be two separate things. So I'm just going to go ahead and use the 2002 Honda Rancher because it goes through the door where there's more light. Alright, so what to look for when buying anything used, especially ATVs and stuff. You want to look at how it's been treated and what it's been used for. There's lots of questions that are involved in buying something like this. Like this one we've almost new since 2002. We bought this brand new in 2002 in West Virginia, and we also had 93 Four Tracks Honda that was bought new as well. This one here, this yellow 2003 Honda Foreman, that one we bought used, but I'm just going to go ahead and use this one because this is my four-wheeler. This is the one that I use most often. So let's get to it. So things you're going to want to check, there's lots of things you got to check on these things. There's just lots and lots of things because when parts go wrong on four-wheelers and stuff, it can become pretty costly. So I'm just going to start with the simplest stuff and work my way up. We want to look at these at the racks here, see if they're nice and solid. You want to make sure all the bolts are there, they're not rusted out. And this one just happens to have a gun rack that doesn't apply to everything. You want to see if the stickers are still readable, which this one is. And you know, if the stickers are all worn off and ripped and torn, the C is all torn, that's just things that you look at and you can tell how well kept it's been. And these ones, obviously, we're in an enclosed space; they aren't left outside more than a day or two. But like I said, make sure all these things are still readable. Because also these things here also tell you just about how much pound you should put on one of these racks. Like this one's 66 pounds. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and be honest. I've put probably well over 200 on the front of this and probably close to 400 in the back of pellets and stuff for our pellet stove there. But, you know, that's just things because I'm honest. If I were to sell this, which I never will, I would tell them that. I'd say, like, I've used it for more than that. But I don't think but it's still structurally perfectly sound. So things you're going to want to ask the person about a four-wheeler ATV. This can be applied to a side-by-side similar. There's a lot of similar things in a side-by-side, which is the ones that it's like a really it's a more off-road golf cart, in case any of you don't know. You want to ask them, like, how new are the tires? These tires are, as you can tell, they are very old. The tread on them are horrible compared to the tread on, I know you can't really, there you go, you can see a tread on that one, how much bigger it is than them. But you want to ask them, like, when the tires last changed, when they last did the oil on it. You want to ask them when they last had it checked at a service place. You want to ask them, have they ever towed a lot with it? Because a lot of these bigger four-wheelers, like 300s and up, tend to have tow hitches on them, where you can put a tow ball, similar to what you would use on a truck. And you want to know if they over-towed with this, because the transmission can get fried out if you're towing too much with it. But not a lot of people use them for that. Most people use them for off-road use, trails and stuff like that. You want to check the brakes. These ones here, the rear brakes, you want to make sure the brakes work, obviously. So when you're driving it, this one here has four-wheel drive. It's full-time four-wheel drive, meaning there's no rear-wheel drive. It's always in four-wheel drive. So you want to make sure all four wheels, the front and the back, are spinning and working properly. You want to make sure your transmission shifts through the gears good. This one here has a semi-automatic, meaning when you're driving it, there's no clutch or anything. This is your rear brake right here, and then this is your front brake right here, and that's the hydraulic brake. The front brakes have hydraulics in them on some four-wheelers, which this one does, and you want to make sure that's been kept up to date as well. But what I was saying, I'm going to give you a reference here. This one, all you do is when you're driving it, you get the RPMs high enough, you let off the throttle, which is right here. So when you're giving it gas, you let off, and then you shift up. You shift from first gear to second, and so on. So you want to know how many gears this thing has, and you want to be able to go through all 5 gears if it has 5, 4 gears if it has 4, etc., to make sure they all work. The same goes for if it's a manual or an automatic. You want to make sure it goes through all the gears. And something like this dirt bike here, this one is a clutch, meaning you have to squeeze this and then shift up or down depending. You always have to use a clutch to shift. So that's what a full manual is. So it's a little bit different, but if it does have a clutch, you want to make sure the clutch works properly. Another thing when you have the thing on, make sure you get the thing nice and warmed up. Make sure it's been running for a while. Make sure, another couple of things, you want to actually have them make sure the engine is cold. You want to make sure it's been sitting for at least a day, just because you want to see if the battery is good. You want to see how well it starts up. You want to know if it needs choke. Like this one's been sitting for 2 or 3 days and it's been inside, obviously, so it's a little bit different, but doesn't even need. See? It didn't even need choke. But sometimes when they're outside, they will. But you want to make sure that works as well. You want to make sure your choke, you want to make sure that when you pull that out, that works and it helps start the engine. And once the engine's been running for a while, you want to make sure the oil light, the oil temperature, which is that red one right there, it just went off. You want to make sure that doesn't work. My bad. You want to make sure it does work. And you want to make sure it doesn't come on. So, also you want to make sure if it has reverse. Like I'll put this in reverse right now. See, the reverse light comes on, then you shift back up for neutral, and you want to make sure that all works. You want to make sure your lights, those work. These are your low beams, high beams. You want to make sure those work. And forgive the Miami Dolphins seat. I am not a Dolphins fan. That's my father. I've tried to get rid of that chair, and he wouldn't let me. I'm a Giants fan. Sorry if that upsets some people. But other things you're going to want to check, obviously, you're going to want to take the seat off. And, it's got some dirt in here because there's a lot of swamp and stuff outside that I go through. Like, right in back of this little island right here, there's, like, all swamps and stuff all through there that I go through. So it's obviously muddy, but I always clean it. You want to check the air box, which is right here. The majority of four-wheelers that's underneath the seat. You don't want to check that. And this one does look kind of dirty. I can't really take it out because there's bolts and stuff holding it on. I just don't have the time to do it right this second, but you get the point. You're going to want to check that. Make sure it's somewhat clean. Make sure it's not like torn or beat up. Then obviously you got to put that back on and get that in there. Check the battery. Like I said, make sure the battery is good and it's not old. Well, this one's old, but it still works perfectly good. Another thing, before you start the four-wheeler like this goes again with making sure the engine is still cold. This goes with that. While the engine is still cold, before you let them start it, always find out which side the dipstick is. This is the dipstick right here. You're going to want to just unscrew that. Just like so, and check the oil. This one I gotta change, I know that much, but just undo that, wipe it clean, put it back in, pull it out, and see how dark or clean it is. That'll just show you if they're lying or not about doing oil changes, or they just say they don't know. Make sure if it has a fuel gauge, just make sure simple little things like that. Make sure those simple little things work, because that goes a really, really long way in the future. Make sure all your tires, going back to that, make sure they hold air. Make sure they don't shake. If you pull on, make sure it doesn't shake around or move abnormally, because there's wheel bearings in these things that go, and believe me, you have to have a special pulley to take it off, and it is not fun getting those. This one here has 2 wheel bearings that have one on, I believe, that one, and now it's this one, the wheel bearing. Hear that? It shouldn't be making that noise because the wheel bearing went. And coincidentally, this is the one we use to plow, so we gotta get that fixed. But believe me, it's a pain. Other things you want to be sure about on these four-wheelers, make sure your exhaust, which this is part of the exhaust right here, make sure that's all clean, it's not rotted out. Make sure I know it's kind of hard to see here. You can't really see that. Let me grab a light. Hold on one sec. Alright, we're back. So, I got a flashlight. You're going to want, you see this right here, that is your fuel. And you can tell, I'm not sure if you can read that or not, on the right there of the plastic it says fuel, and then on the left it says off, and then down there, can't really see, it says on. And all the way at the top there's reserve fuel, which pretty much just means that when you turn this all the way, there's a reserve tank on majority of four-wheelers. Even this dirt bike has one. So if you're on the trail, you're in a field working, doing whatever, you run out of fuel, you can put it on reserve. There should be enough to get you somewhere to get gas, maybe just get you back to the truck or to the house or just get you closer, whatever. Other things you're going to want to check while we're down here is you're going to want to check right there. That's your spark plug. See if that's got a ton of dirt and grime all through there, which this one doesn't. This one's obviously clean. Like I said, I clean these things all the time. I'm very meticulous about that. You're going to want to make sure that's clean. That's another big thing. Make sure it's not all rusted and crummy and, all filled with stuff. And that right there, that's just for your fill the oil. That's all that one is right there. Other things is right here, right there, going across. That's your drive shaft right there. That spins the front, that spins the back wheels right there, and that spins the front wheels. You gotta want to make sure, obviously, that works. When you're riding it, you can kind of look or have the guy or girl who's selling it drive it, and you can look at that just to make sure it's spinning. Right here is your fan, and the thing about these fans is you want to make sure they work, because when these engines get hot, they're fan cooled. Majority of them are fan or air or fan cooled, meaning there's no liquid cooling like a car or snowmobile. So the hard thing is that you can't really tell if these work because these fans only turn on when the engines get very, very, very hot, meaning you would have to drive the thing probably for a solid hour or so at like really running it just to get it hot enough, and it's not going to be very easy to have that happen. So I highly doubt the person who's selling is going to be sitting there letting you ride this thing, up and down the road for an hour just to get the fan to go on. Just ask them, just say, can you please be honest with me? Do you know if the fan works? If you don't know, just tell me. Odds are 90% of the time when you're riding one of these things, you're not going to be using the fan all that much, because people who use these things on the trails aren't riding, very aggressively. They tend to go slow over rocks and stuff like that. Some people, not all, by any means. Other things you're going to want to look at, and this light is very dim, but it does the job. This is all your suspension components. Your steering, your A-arms, all that good stuff. You want to make sure everything in here is tight. You want to grab it. I'm not sure if you can see it without, I know you can't really see it, but you're going to want to just grab everything, pull on it, try and shake it, all that good stuff. Make sure nothing's loose or wobbly under here. Make sure everything is tight. Make sure, you can even see right here, I'm going to try and clean it here. You can even see kind of right, if my camera will focus, right there it says 2002 model. Majority of everything will still have this, even if it's in the 90s. Some of them still have that. If you can read that, that'll go a long way, because you can get the VIN number and stuff on it and see if it's stolen or not and all that good stuff. Which leads me to also mentioning, make sure you have a title. Make sure they have the title. I mean, 9 times out of 10, you gotta make sure a four-wheeler has the title to it, because like this four-wheeler right here. This one, my grandfather, like I said, we bought this in 2002, and we never used this on any roads. We never used it on any public land, because in West Virginia, my grandfather, all he used it for was going off in the mountain. He owned over 100 acres of mountain and woods, and that's all we used these four-wheelers for. This one and the 93 that we had alongside this, which we don't have here. We have it in our location, but my point is, he never got the thing registered all but once. So when he first got it, he had it registered and didn't want to register it anymore because we never used it anywhere besides his house, so we never had a need for it. That being said, he coincidentally lost the title. Now, yes, we bought this thing brand new. Yes, it's been in our name. It's never been stolen. Nobody else's name. It's only been in my grandfather's, now mine. So, well, technically it went to my grandfather, then my dad, and then my dad gave it to me, theoretically. But there's no title, and that being said, we can go through purchasing a new title, but like I said, we have all the fun we need out here in these woods and stuff. We don't take it anywhere, so that's another problem for another day. But when you don't have a title, if somebody doesn't have a title to a four-wheeler, like if they're the second, the third, fourth, fifth, 18th owner, whatever it may be, or even if they're the first owner that don't have the title, if you don't have a title, you can't get registered. You can't get the stickers, and all registration is usually there'll be like a patch right here, right along here, with a sticker that shows a date, like 20 for 2020, and it'll kind of just show you that the thing's been registered, and It's good for public use, meaning you can bring on state land and stuff. And if a game warden sees it without registration, you're gonna get a ticket. 98% of the time you're gonna get a ticket for that. Now that being said, if you have it registered, then obviously you don't have to worry. But without a title, a clean title, you can't get registered. So you have to somehow track down a title. And that's why if I'm ever buying something used, I never, ever, ever will buy anything used without a title. Never. It's just not a good idea unless you're buying, let's say you have this four-wheeler. Let me turn the key off. Let's say you bought this four-wheeler. Let's say the thing crashed. Somebody crashed the front end and the whole thing up to the handlebars was just demolished. Which I would hope that the person would be okay and, all that stuff. But if they don't have a title for it and you're buying it just to take parts off of it, like the wheels or transmission or handlebars or whatever it may be, you want to make sure the thing's not stolen. That's number uno. That is a main thing. You want to make sure it's not stolen. So if they don't have the title, take the number that it shows you, the model number, and ask your DMV, even call a local police station or sheriff's office and ask them. They'll run it and they'll say, no, it's not stolen. Then you can buy it, maybe take the parts off it and whatnot. So that's just another thing. Always look for a title. That's a big thing. But, so getting to how the thing has been used, a lot of people won't tell you exactly what they've done with it. They won't tell you how hard they've been riding the thing. They won't tell you if they lean back on the rear and do wheelies with it, or they have rammed into the mud and all this and that. They might not tell you all that stuff. So good things to check. Where's that light? Here we go. A good thing to check is, number one, the seat condition. If the seat right here is all torn up and beat up, that's just kind of indicates that they never really took care of it. Sorry about that. That just indicates that they never really took care of it. The seat, they didn't really care about it too much. You can kind of see it's kind of dusty through here, but there's not mud or water or this thing's not all beat up. The battery is in decent enough shape. The plastic isn't all cracked and brittle and all that good stuff. The stickers are still all fairly really good. And yeah, this has a crack in it, and that was coincidentally, I was pulling this thing out. This got stuck in some swamp, the swamp that I showed you, and this one here has a winch. Right there has a winch on it, and that winch cord right there came out when I was pulling this thing out, and the hook went and flew into that rancher's windshield and cracked it. But speaking of which, while I'm over here, that's another thing. If a four-wheeler like this one has a winch on it, you want to make sure that goes up and down. You want to make sure it's strong, the cable is solid. Going under here, this one does have a skid plate. We just never put it on. You want to make sure it comes with a skid plate, and the skid plate is good. You want the same thing. You want to make sure all that is tight and good on it and all that stuff, and make sure all the lights work and yada yada yada, all the stuff I already mentioned. But coming with a skid, the winch, make sure the winch goes up and down. And this one had the plow, or has a plow, and that makes sure that the plow works. And if you're buying it for that, this one as well. This one here has an electronic shifter, meaning this one you don't shift with your foot. This one here, you turn on the key, and obviously, again, you can make sure the lights all work up and down. But this one here has a digital speedometer, time. You kind of want to make sure that all works. You want to make sure, and with ones like this, usually you can check and see how many hours this one has. This one has close to 600 hours. This one also has 4,000 miles, just about. That's another thing you can check, and it just helps to know how much this thing's been ridden and stuff. This was mostly a trail machine and a plower. That was about it. But you want to make sure. So going back to the electronic shifter right here, obviously up is for first, second, third, fourth, fifth. And then obviously you go back down to get back from 4, 3, 2, 1. And obviously you press up and it goes up. And it's not on, so it doesn't shift as good. And then you want to make sure the reverse works. In reverse, you just push this little button in right here. Push down, squeeze the brake, and there you go. So you want to make sure all that stuff works. And obviously, that's the winch. That was the winch. You want to make sure that works. And this one here is a special, because this one, well, it's not really special, but this one has rear-wheel drive, aka two-wheel drive. You can see that right. If I can get the light to work with me here. See, it says 2-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive. And right now, obviously, we have in 2-wheel drive 90% of the time. The only time we put in 4-wheel drive is in the mud or plowing. And when you put it in 4-wheel drive, it will show you. Usually, okay, maybe not. Maybe it has to be started. Yeah, it's not wind up. There we go. See, when you put it in 4-wheel drive, that little light comes on. That's 4-wheel drive being activated. Alright, turn that off. And you see, just for instance, this one had to be, whatever you call it, choked. So, and that just goes to show you that even with a brand new battery, which this one has, it still needed to be choked, which isn't the most fun thing to do, but, you know. So, other than those few things that I've showed you, you also want to be sure, just some other minor things. You want to know if it's been an accident, like I kind of already mentioned. You want to make sure that the frame and everything is solid. You want to make sure about all that stuff is good on it. You're also going to want to double check your brakes. Like I already mentioned, that this is your back brake right here. This is your front brake. And then down there is your other rear brake. That's your foot. You can use your foot to hit the rear brake. Along with this, you can either use your hand or use that. And over the years, we never really used this. So really what should happen is when you push down with your foot, it's supposed to pop back up, and it doesn't because we haven't really used it, and we just realized that and been trying to work it so that it will work a little bit better, you know. But sometimes with things like the dirt bike right here, this one only has the front brake on the handlebar right there above King's head. My dog's head. Right there above his head, there's the front brake. And down there is the foot brake. And then that's a clutch. This one doesn't have two handlebars for the brakes. It only has a foot and a one handlebar. But, so that's just kind of some things to look over on four-wheelers. Other things you want to look for. I forgot to mention on this one here, this is a really neat feature I like about this four-wheeler. Sometimes when you're riding a four-wheeler like this is why I don't like electronics on four-wheelers, cars, whatever it is. I don't like it. I can't stand electronic stuff. I like it just kind of simple, base, stock, just like that. That's a brute of a four-wheeler. Hardly have any problems with it. This one, when you're shifting up and down, there's a tendency for four-wheelers that had this type of shifting, which is what ES stands for, electronic shift. And it even says it down here, ESP, electronic shift program. There's a tendency for this not to shift, and it will get stuck in between gears and won't want to work. So there's a really neat feature in the back here, which also brings me to another point. Your rear lights, you want to make sure those work as well. But you might make sure your thing right here, your case is good. Make sure it works all right. Make sure there's nothing wrong with it. There usually four-wheelers will come with like little toolboxes, not toolboxes, tool cylinders. They have tools and stuff in. Kind of just look through that and see what kind of tools are in there, just because it's worth having, so you know it'll help you. But this bad boy right here is essentially, it forces the four-wheeler to go into a semi-automatic foot shifter. It goes. Here, I'll kind of show you because there's more light over here. It's pretty much the same thing as that. It pretty much just goes on so you can shift with your foot. If the unfortunate thing happens where the electronic shifter stops working, you would try to get the best light quality here. I'm going to just put this on and then I'll show you with the light here. So, let me grab the flashlight right here and I'll show you what I mean. So, this one, right here, you can see there is the shifter for your foot. You would essentially just use that to shift up and down instead of using the electronic shifter. And when you do that, it will kind of show on the computer right there that it'll show blinking and stuff and show that it needs that to work. Or that it's using that instead of the electronic shifter. Another coincidental thing about these these electronic shifters, if your battery ever dies, believe me, you might be able to jump start it, and it will be started neutral, but you won't be able to shift it because it needs the battery in order to shift up and down. So that being said, if you don't have one of those little foot peg, which you can't really see, if you don't have one of those, and you are reliant on this and you don't have a battery, it will not move. You'll have to push it. It might start with a jump, but it won't be able to move. So that would kind of suck. I'm just saying. So let's put this all back. Other than that, you want to just kind of see, again, look inside of here, look in here, see if it's been properly capped, see if there's like water or mud or stuff in there, see if there's been stuff that's been getting in there, like water, mud. You know, you want to make sure that stuff's not getting in there. And this one came with a plow, so I'm just going to kind of show you something on this. You want to make sure your lever right there, that's your lever, and that's what you use to turn the plow left and right. You want to make sure that works. You want to make sure the hookup for the winch is good. You want to make sure these beams are solid and strong. You want to make sure it has these two little latches that latch onto the frame. Make sure those are there so you can actually hook it up. And that's just other things to look out for. If you do have a plow by coincidence and it does have a plow, that's a good thing to look for. Moving on to this dirt bike real quick. This one I'm just going to go over kind of quick because this one's a lot simpler. What you're going to want to look for on a dirt bike is look for your chain. Make sure your chain is tight. Make sure it's not floppy or loose. Make sure it's been lubricated really good. You can just do that by running your fingers, and you can usually tell. This one has. I obviously lubricated it. Make sure you have a chain guard. This one needs a new chain guard. I already know that. Make sure your chain guard works and the chain tensioner works. And if it doesn't, that'll help you reduce the price. Other things you're going to want to check. This is where I got screwed over. Pardon my language, but I did get screwed over on this bike. Something I forgot to check. Right down here. I don't know if you guys can all see this. I'm going to try and get the light. Right there's the oil drain plug. Yeah. I don't know if you can tell. That thing is beyond shot. It's beyond taking off. I can't get it off. I need a professional to take it off. And I just didn't have the means of doing it, so hopefully this time next summer I'll have somebody take it off and put a new one on. I tried everything to get that off, but, you know, there's only so much I can do. Again, you want to just check the seat. This one doesn't come off. The seat doesn't come off just like one of the four-wheelers do over there. You got to, there's two bolts underneath the seat. You got to unscrew to take the seat off. It's not that big of a deal. Again, make sure your thing here, your fuel works, your fuel on off switches work, and reserve tank. Make sure it shifts good down there. Make sure it shifts real good. Make sure your kickstand works, your spark plug. Make sure your exhaust here is all nice and tight and solid. Make sure your suspension is nice and clean and they work. Your front brakes, make sure those work along with the hydraulics, which is right here. And yes, my handle is broken. You get a new one. Make sure your hydraulics work. Make sure your kill switches work. Make sure on a dirt bike, this is your locking key right here. So when you have the bike sitting somewhere, let's say you're on a trail and you have to walk away from it for a few minutes, there's like a little lock you can put on. You turn the wheel either this way or all the way the other way. And then you just turn the key, turn it all the way over, take the key out, and then the steering is locked so nobody can just push it away or bump start it. And in case you don't know what bump starting is, once I get the key, bump starting essentially is with any manual. It's essentially where you can do this with cars even. You get the thing rolling and you put it into a gear. So if you put it in like third gear and you go down a hill and then you let off the clutch. So in this case, if you go down the hill and I have it in third gear and I let off the clutch, it will bump start the engine and it will start going. But you need the key on, I'm pretty sure, to do that. So if you don't have the key, I don't know if it would work. I'm not sure. I haven't really tried it. I had no use to trying it. I almost dropped the camera. Sorry about that. Another thing about these dirt bikes is there's a thing called an Enduro package for certain bikes. You can get a tail light on here. You can get blinkers on the sides and a headlight up here. You can get all that good stuff. Make sure all those work if that's what you're buying. Make sure, same with the four-wheelers, make sure the choke works. Excuse me. Make sure your, what was I going to say? Your battery. This one here has an electric start. Much like the four-wheelers have electric starts, and I left that key on. I killed the battery a couple of times by doing that. Make sure your keys are off if you have a battery. But make sure your electric start on this works. If it has an electric start, like, you can tell that works. I mean, it'll start. I just don't want to flood the place I'm in with exhaust fumes. But make sure that works. This one does not have a kickstart. I kind of wish it did. Some dirt bikes have a kickstart down here. This one doesn't. It's only electric start, which kind of sucks. So make sure your battery's good. Make sure all the cables and the fuses is good. See about the tires. See how well they hold air, and see how well the tread is, and check your air on these things. Your air, whatever you call it thing. I can't even think. The part where you put the air in. I should know that, but it's just slipping my mind. I know this one here has the serial number and everything right there. If the camera will focus, you want to make sure that that is not stolen as well. But these are just simple little things I felt like sharing and helping you buy. It might help you buy some in the future. If you guys have any questions about my four-wheelers or any questions in general about what to look for, about what you might want or what you may need when buying a four-wheeler or snowmobile or dirt bike or ATV, side-by-side, whatever it may be, leave your questions in the comments. I'll be sure to answer them. Another thing I will be doing in the next video, which will hopefully be later tonight, I'm probably going to film it again and upload that one a few days from now, is what do you need specifically? Do you need like a 400, a 450, a 350? Do you need a side-by-side? Do you need a, as funny as it may seem, golf carts are actually pretty well used. Besides golfing, they, at my grandmother's property, she has a golf cart, and we use that thing for just as much stuff as we use the stupid four-wheelers for. So, I mean, a stupid little golf cart's an old Yamaha. I mean, the thing, it does have problems. It's broke down, but since then, but we had used that thing for hauling stuff, wood, and all this stuff. We overloaded that golf cart. This is probably why we broke it, but even a golf cart you could possibly use for stuff like this. But I'm going to go through a video of what you need. I'm going to kind of go through what kind of four-wheelers somebody may need based on what they are needing it to do. So like a Rancher, a 350, or a 400, 450, 300, all those different things. There's numbers there for a reason, and I'm going to kind of go through what those things mean in the next video. So I hope you all enjoy, and leave your comments of what you think I could do, make a video for or whatnot, and please like and subscribe. Thank you.